Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps.
Today I'm going to show you how to work wrap and turn short rows in garter stitch. A short row is basically just a row that you don't work all the way across. So we might work to here and then turn around and go back the other way without working the last few stitches. Now that would leave a gap where we switched here. So to avoid that gap, one of the methods that we can use is called wrapping and turning, where we wrap the next stitch with the working yarn before we turn around and go back. So that's the method we're going to be looking at today. But I always like to look at short rows on paper first. It helps the shaping make sense to me in my head. The swatch I'm working on has 15 stitches, so here are my 15 stitches right here, and I'm doing garter stitch, which is knit every row. So here is a right side row of knit stitches, and then here's a wrong side row where I knit on the wrong side so it looks like a purl on the right side, right? And I've marked my center stitch here because that helped me with placement. Now, short rows tend to create triangular shapes. You can make those shapes curve depending on how you space your turns, but you're either going to be going from the narrowest point to the widest point, or you're going to be going from the widest point to the narrowest point. So you can go at it in either direction depending on the shape you're trying to create. I'm going to show you both. We're going to start by going from the narrowest point out to the widest point. So first I'm going to knit to my center stitch, right? And then I'm going to go just a little bit past it. So here I'm going 2 stitches past it. This is not a stitch. This is the wrap and turn. So this is the first stitch that we don't work. So here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches are left unworked, right? That first one that we're not going to work, I'm going to wrap the yarn around it and then turn around and go back the other way. When I go back the other way, I'm going to go past that center point, and here I went 2 stitches past the center point. Here I'm going to go 2 stitches past the center point, right? So I'm going to go past that center point and then stop 2 stitches after it, wrap the next stitch, turn around and go back. Then I'm going to go a little farther past, because remember, I'm going wider as I go, right? So here I went 2 stitches past the center point. Now I'm going to go 4 stitches past the center point. Wrap, turn, go back. Okay, another 4 stitches past the center point. So 2 stitches further than I was before, right? Wrap, turn, and this time I'm done with my shaping. So now I'm going to go back all the way across and finish that row. So you can see that this stitch got worked 4 times less than this stitch. So that is the general concept of the short row. Now here we're doing it the other way. We get the same effect. We start by going farther out and then turn and go back, and then we go a little bit less far out and then turn and go back and a little less far out. The shape that you create is slightly different, but both will give you a similar effect of puffing up the middle while keeping the sides kind of flat. So let's take a look at how this actually works on our swatch. So I've done these few setup rows in garter stitch already. Now I'm going to start my first short row. So I'm going to knit to the center and then 2 more stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches to my center stitch, and then 2 more after that. So I'm knitting 10. And now I've come to the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. So this is the first stitch I'm not going to work, and I'm going to wrap it. So the way that I like to wrap in garter stitch is I start with my yarn at the back, which it already is. I slip this stitch purlwise, okay? Now I bring the yarn to the front. So you can see that what that's done is it's wrapped the yarn around that stitch. And now I can slip this stitch back to the other needle because I'm not actually going to work it. So I just passed the stitch over. Okay, let's go back to where we were. I had my yarn where it was. I just passed the stitch over, wrapped the yarn around it, and then passed it back. I have not turned it, I have not worked it. All I've done is move the yarn so that it's around that stitch. Now when I turn my work to go back the other way, you can see that my yarn is wrapping around that stitch. It's kind of hugging that stitch, okay? So now I can knit back the other way. Notice I'm not knitting that wrapped stitch, right? I'm knitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches and then wrapping the next one. So let's knit 1. Now see how that wrap sits there? Garter stitch short rows are awesome because that wrap looks just like a stitch in garter stitch, right? So when you work back, it's all hidden. You can't see that wrap at all. So I'm knitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now when you look at your needle, don't get confused. You see this gap here and it looks like you've knit 6 stitches. You have not. This is the wrapped stitch. You've knit 5 stitches. Okay, so let's wrap this other stitch. Now you can wrap in the opposite direction. So what I'm going to do is on this side I'm going to wrap the way I showed you, and on this side I'm going to wrap the opposite way. You can bring the yarn to the front first, then slip your stitch, and then bring the yarn to the back. So it's still wrapped around, but it's wrapped around with that bump in the front instead of with that bump in the back. I don't think it makes a huge difference in garter stitch. You can do it either way, and I've seen it done both ways. So I slipped that stitch over, I wrapped the yarn around, now I'm putting it back on the other needle, and when I turn, because I wrapped the other way, my yarn is in front, right? So I got to bring it to the back, and you can see that that wraps the yarn completely around the stitch just like it did the other way. It's just in the opposite direction. So that was this row. Now I'm going to knit the next row, and this one's going to go a little bit past that wrap we just did. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 brings us to our wrapped stitch. If we were knitting in stockinette, and even some people in garter stitch, they pick up the wrap and they knit it along with the stitch. So you would stick your needle into this wrap and knit it along with the stitch. You don't have to do that in garter stitch. It actually makes it show more in garter stitch if you do that. If you leave it alone and just ignore that wrap, it will blend into all the purl bumps around it and you'll never see it. So don't bother picking up your wrap. You're just going to knit that stitch like normal. And see, that loop just looks like one of the garter stitches next to it, like one of the purl bumps, right? And then we're going to knit one more stitch. So that was my 7 stitches. I have 3 left at the end, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to wrap and turn the next one. On this side I'm wrapping from the back, so I'm going to slip this stitch, wrap it around, and slip it back. Okay? Turn my work. And again, you can wrap either way. I just want to show you what it looks like both ways. So now I'm going to go back this way, and I'm knitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches, and then wrapping and turning. Okay, I've hit, that was 7. I've hit my wrapped stitch here. I'm ignoring that wrap and knitting 8 and 9. And then we're going to wrap this one, and on this side I'm doing it from the front, right? So I bring my yarn to the front, I'm slipping the stitch, I'm wrapping the yarn around by bringing it to the back, and then I'm slipping that stitch back again. Turn my work, and now we're done with our short rows, or almost done. We're not going to wrap and turn anymore. Now we're going to knit all the way to the end and then come back and knit all the way across as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Remember to bring your yarn to the back this way, not over the needle. You don't want to create a yarn over. Bring your yarn to the back and go ahead and knit all the way. And then I turn, and I'm going to knit all the way back, just to get me a couple of plain garter rows in between my short rows here. So you can see that we've got this nice curve of fabric that we formed, basically because we worked more stitches in the center than we did on the sides, right? We worked these center stitches more times than we did on the sides, and we created a triangle, and it went from the narrowest point to the widest point. Okay, now we're going to create a triangle the other way. So now we're going to do more or less the same thing, but we're starting from the widest and going to the narrowest. For the next row, I'm knitting all the way across till there's only 3 stitches left. So I'm knitting 12 stitches. I'm going to go ahead and knit those 12. I've knit 12 stitches. I have 3 stitches left, so I'm going to wrap and turn right here on the next stitch. So I've got my yarn at the back. I'm going to slip the stitch purlwise, bring the yarn to the front, and slip the stitch back again. I've wrapped that stitch. And that's the wrap part. Here's the turn part. Go ahead and turn. Okay. Now I'm going to knit back till there's only 3 stitches left on the other side. So that should be, this was 12, that should be 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've knit 9, now I've got to wrap the next stitch. So I bring the yarn forward, because this time I'm wrapping it the other way. Bring the yarn forward, slip the stitch purlwise, wrap it around to the back, and then slip the stitch back again. And I'm ready to turn. So that was the wrap, that is the turn. Because my yarn's in front, I need to bring it to the back, and then we start the next row. So now this row was 9, this row is going to be 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can see now instead of the rows getting longer, the rows are getting shorter. Okay, I have knit 7, I have 5 stitches left. I'm going to wrap and turn. This one I'm doing from the back, so my yarn's already at the back. I'm going to slip the next stitch, wrap it, slip it back, and turn. And then I knit back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches, wrap and turn. And then this one I'm wrapping from the front, so I bring my yarn to the front, slip that stitch, wrap it, and slip it back, and then turn. Bring my yarn to the back to knit, and now I knit all the way across to the end. So that should be 10 stitches to get me to the end. And then I'll do one more row all the way across. And remember, I'm completely ignoring those wraps, right? We're not picking them up. We're not doing anything with them. They're just sitting there pretending to be purl bumps. We don't have to do anything more complicated than that. Okay, let's take a look at what we have here. This is our first set of wrap and turn short rows that created this triangle shape here. Do you see that shape right there? This is these 2 lines in the middle. That is where we worked even. And then this section here is where we started at the widest point and worked back in. And that's those wrap and turn short rows. So you can see that this fabric wants to puff up, which is why this is great for shaping things like bust darts and things like that. You actually get a little cupping in the fabric. And that is the point of short rows, is to create that kind of shaping. Okay, let's look at our wrap and turn methods. Let's find the stitches that are wrapped. So that stitch is wrapped. I know it looks just like a purl bump, but you can see that it's actually going around the side of the stitch there. So that stitch is wrapped, meaning that, where is it? That is our next wrap stitch right there. Okay, you can see this side is where I did the wrap where my yarn started at the back. And you can see that it's really hard to actually identify the wrapped stitches. So there's a wrapped stitch right there, I believe. And there's a wrapped stitch right there. But it really blends in well. I don't have an easy time finding these wraps here. Okay. If I turn it around, looking still at this side, it's even harder actually. I have a hard time finding the wrapped stitches. Here's where it's wrapped over there. You can see that little bit of yarn wrapping around the stitch there, right back there. And then there should be one right here. That one is wrapped, I think. No, wait. Is it? I think this one is wrapped. This one is wrapped right here. And then you can see because it doubles up here. That's the only way I'm being able to notice it. But that's how you can tell. That's how the wrap stitches look when you work it with the yarn at the back. Now let's look at this side. On this side, there's a wrap stitch here. You can see it's a little bit bigger, but that might have just been a tension issue. Let's find another one. There's a wrap stitch there, and that means there should be one here, and there should be one somewhere here. Here it is, right there. Okay, so they don't really show that much, right? It doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. This, I think, is actually a little bit more visible. If you wrap from the front, I feel like that's a little more visible. But then when you turn it around, they look the same, right? I don't find any difference between wrapping from the front or wrapping from the back that makes enough of a difference that I would choose one method over the other. I would just go with whatever's comfortable for you. Wrapping from the back makes sense for me because the yarn is already at the back. So it just makes sense to keep it at the back and then bring it forward. The reason I wanted to show you both ways is because you will see both ways in patterns and in tutorials If it's a pattern, follow whatever the pattern says. If they want you to wrap it from the front, wrap it from the front. If they want you to wrap it from the back, wrap it from the back. If you're making up your own thing and you want to do it whichever way is more comfortable for you, go for it. You can do it both ways, and I didn't want you to get confused seeing some tutorials do it one way and some do it the other way. So both ways are equally acceptable, and that is how you do wrap and turn short rows in garter stitch. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching.